Have you ever woken up to find every single dollar in your bank account gone, and the person you trusted the most smiling at you saying we needed it more than you? It feels impossible to imagine the shock, the fear, the betrayal that grips you instantly. Your heart races, your hands shake, and your mind cannot comprehend how someone so close could take what is yours. Without a second thought, I remember the morning vividly. The sunlight was streaming through the window, birds were singing, everything seemed normal until I picked up my phone to check my account. The balance was zero. Every single dollar vanished, as if it had never existed. I stared at the screen in disbelief, in panic and anger. I thought there must be a mistake. Maybe the bank had an error. Maybe it was a technical glitch. I refreshed the page over and over, hoping for some sign that it was wrong, but nothing changed. The numbers were stubbornly cold and final. As I sat there frozen, I could hear the faint chatter of my family from the living room. The laughter, the casual conversation that just moments ago had felt warm now felt like a cruel contrast to the storm raging inside me. And then he appeared, my brother-in-law, with that smug smile on his face, the one that made my blood run cold. He looked at me and said, "We needed it more than you." Just like that, those words hit me like a punch to the stomach. The trust, the love, the years of family bonds suddenly felt fragile, as if they could shatter with a single word. I wanted to scream, to demand an explanation, to call the bank to find out how this could happen, but for a moment I was paralyzed, frozen in disbelief, trying to process the betrayal, the anger, the confusion. All at once I realized that my reaction mattered. My next step would determine whether I became a victim or whether I found a way to take control. Despite the shock and despite the pain, I knew that I could not let this define me. I could not let fear dictate my next actions. I had to think fast and act smarter than ever before. Every heartbeat was a reminder that time was precious, that inaction would only let the situation get worse, that I needed to be alert to every detail and aware of every possibility. The warmth of family moments had turned cold, and the lesson was immediate: trust carefully, protect your resources, and never underestimate the people around you, because sometimes even those closest can surprise you with actions you never imagined. As I sat there holding the phone, staring at the empty balance, of fire ignited within me, a determination to not only recover what was lost, but to understand how it happened, to prevent it in the future, to take control of my finances in a way I had never done before. And that determination became the first step on a journey that would teach me everything about vigilance, about trust, about empowerment, and about reclaiming my peace of mind. It all started in that moment of shock and disbelief, when I realized that nothing would ever be the same again, and that I had to choose between despair and action, and I chose action. Hi, my name is Mary, and I have spent years helping people like you, especially those in their golden years, to understand how to protect their money, how to avoid surprises, and how to take control of their finances, even when it feels overwhelming. I know what it is like to feel vulnerable, to feel uncertain about who to trust, and to worry about making a mistake that could cost you everything. I have worked with countless retirees and pensioners, guiding them through simple, practical steps that anyone can apply, and seeing the relief and confidence that comes when they realize they can protect themselves is what drives me to share these stories and tips with you. I am not here to lecture or to confuse. I am here to speak to you like a friend, like someone who has been there and who wants to make sure you never feel that shock of betrayal alone again. Today, I am going to take you through a story that is both a warning and a lesson, a story that shows how even in moments when you feel powerless, there is a path to empowerment, a story that could change the way you think about trust, about family, about money, and about your own ability to safeguard your future. You will learn step by step what I discovered, what worked, what did not work, and how small actions can make a huge difference. You will feel the tension, the surprise, the fear, and the relief, just as I did, and you will come away with tools that you can use immediately to protect yourself and your loved ones. So stay with me, because the journey starts here, and the moment you understand the lessons in this story, you will realize that your age is not a limitation, it is a strength, because you have experience, because you have wisdom, and because you can choose to act now to prevent situations that could otherwise take away your peace of mind. You might think that family always has your back, that those closest to you would never take advantage of your trust, that money is a safe thing, that once you worked hard and saved it, no one would dare to touch it. But the truth is very different. Studies show that over 60% of people above 65 have experienced some form of financial betrayal by someone they trusted. It could be a distant relative, a neighbor, a caretaker, or even someone who claims to be a friend. And the shocking part is that most of these incidents go unreported. Many retirees feel embarrassed or ashamed, or they simply hope it will not happen again. I used to believe, like many of us, that family is sacred, that love and trust are automatic shields against greed and betrayal. But the morning I opened my bank account, I learned the harsh reality that trust is not automatic, it must be protected. And even those closest to you can act in ways that surprise you in the worst possible moment. Imagine the scenario: a family Reunion in a warm gathering, laughter, food, shared memories, smiles. Everywhere you feel safe, secure, loved. Suddenly, behind the smiles, behind the small talk, there can be intentions you never imagined. I learned from that experience that appearances are deceiving, that just because someone hugs you, just because someone talks warmly to you does not mean they will honor your trust, that money, especially your own money, is something that must always be monitored and secured, that even small negligence can be exploited. And when I started to look deeper, I realized that these situations are not rare. They happen all the time to people just like you and me, people who never expected it, people who were careful and kind, people who assumed the best and yet found themselves shocked and betrayed. The lesson that hit me hardest was that age, experience, and wisdom do not automatically protect you. What protects you is action, knowledge, vigilance, and the habit of never leaving your finances vulnerable and the moment I understood that, I also realized something empowering, that even though betrayal can strike, even though family can surprise you in the worst way, you are not powerless. You can learn, you can adapt, you can take steps to prevent it from happening again. And that realization became the turning point that shifted my mindset from victim to strategist, from fear to control, from uncertainty to empowered action. I started to study security measures. I started to review every account, every password, every possible vulnerability. I talked to experts. I learned about authentication. I learned about alerts, about monitoring, about the small actions that together create an unbreachable safety net. And the more I learned, the more I realized that this is something anyone can do, something anyone can master regardless of age, because the tools are simple, the principles are universal, and the confidence you gain from taking control is invaluable. And that was when I made a promise to myself that I would never let anyone take advantage of me again, that I would teach others to do the same, that I would transform this shock into knowledge, into empowerment. And that promise is what I carry into every story, every tip, every piece of advice I share. And as you listen to this story, I want you to remember that even when something seems impossible, even when trust is broken, even when fear strikes, you have the ability to act, you have the ability to protect yourself, and you have the ability to turn a negative moment into a lesson that strengthens you. And as I reflect on that shocking morning, the betrayal, the empty account, the smug smile of my brother-in-law, I see now that it was not just a moment of loss, it was the beginning of a journey that taught me more about vigilance, about empowerment, about resilience, and about the fact that no matter your age, you can reclaim control over your life and your money. And the key is to stay alert to the unexpected, to question assumptions, and to always act with awareness and care, because trust is precious, but vigilance is priceless. And understanding that became the bridge to the next chapter, the moment I realized I had the power to change the outcome of the story. And that bridge is what I want to take you across next, as we move into the heart of the story, the part where the problem meets discovery, where fear meets action, and where every step forward starts to transform the situation from despair to hope. The morning after the family reunion, I sat at the kitchen table staring at my phone in disbelief, every dollar in my account gone, and the words of my brother-in-law echoing in my mind, "We needed it more than you." I tried to calm myself, to think rationally, but the shock made it nearly impossible. My hands trembled, my heart raced, and I felt a wave of emotions crashing over me: anger, betrayal, fear, confusion, all mixed into one. It was hard to imagine how someone so close could take what I had worked so hard for over decades. My mind ran through every possible scenario. Could it be a mistake? Was it a bank error? Or had he actually done it? I tried to tell myself that maybe it was temporary, that the numbers would correct themselves. But deep down, I knew that the certainty in his smirk had revealed the truth, that nothing was a mistake, that this was intentional. I remembered the moments at the reunion, the laughter, the food, the conversations, the hugs, the smiles. It all felt like a warm, safe cocoon. And yet beneath the surface, something had shifted, something I could not see until that moment. And as I tried to process it, I realized that my usual sense of security had been shattered, that I could not rely blindly on anyone, no matter how close I felt to them. And the thought that family could betray me in such a blatant way was both terrifying and paralyzing. I felt trapped between the love I had for them, the memories we shared, and the reality of their actions. The room felt smaller, the air heavier, and every sound seemed amplified. As I sat there in disbelief, I replayed every interaction from the reunion, every glance, every comment, every laugh, and slowly a pattern began to emerge. Moments that once seemed innocuous now appeared suspicious, now felt like warnings that I had ignored in my naivety. I wondered how many other people had felt this same shock, how many retirees had gone to sleep thinking everything was fine, only to wake up to an empty account, to the realization that trust had been broken. And I knew that I needed to act. I could not remain frozen in fear or let despair take over. I had to find a way to reclaim control, and that meant facing uncomfortable truths and taking immediate action. The first thing I did was to write down everything I remembered about the transactions, about my interactions, about any unusual behavior I had noticed. Even if I had dismissed it at the time, I documented every detail, because I knew that clarity would be my ally in understanding what had The next step was to contact the bank to see if any transactions could be reversed or investigated. I had to gather information to understand the scope of the loss, to see if there was any chance of recovering even a portion of my savings. Each phone call felt like a small battle. I had to explain the situation repeatedly, answer questions, provide evidence, and yet each step made me feel a little stronger, a little more in control. As I delved deeper, I realized that the betrayal was not just about the money, it was about the assumptions I had made about trust, about family, about security. I had assumed that my age and experience meant I was safe, that kindness and love were shields against greed and deception, but the reality was harsh and sobering. That experience forced me to confront my own vulnerabilities and to see that action, knowledge, and vigilance were the real protections, not blind faith. I also began to notice the emotional toll the incident was taking on me, the anxiety, the sleepless nights, the constant replaying of events in my mind. It was exhausting, and yet I could not afford to surrender to those feelings. I had to channel them into purposeful action. I created a plan to monitor every account, to change every password, to alert the bank to every suspicious activity, and to establish a routine of vigilance that would prevent such a situation from happening again. It was overwhelming at times. The sheer amount of steps and precautions felt like climbing a mountain, but I reminded myself that every small action was a victory, that every precaution was a shield that would protect me and others like me from similar experiences. And as I took those steps, I started to regain a sense of control, a feeling that even though the betrayal had happened, I could influence what came next. I began to realize that problem was not only the loss of money, but the lack of preparedness, the lack of awareness, the assumptions that had left me vulnerable, and that awareness and preparedness were things anyone could develop regardless of age or past experiences. I reflected on how easy it is to assume safety, to assume loyalty, to assume that nothing bad will ever happen to you, and how those assumptions can be dangerous when they prevent you from taking simple protective actions. I also realized that part of the pain came from the emotional conflict, from loving someone who had acted in a hurtful way, from reconciling the warmth of family memories with the cold reality of betrayal. And that conflict was difficult but necessary to face, because acknowledging it allowed me to make better decisions, to act more wisely, to protect myself while still preserving the positive aspects of my life. And as the day went on, as I continued to take notes, as I contacted the bank, as I reviewed my finances, I felt a growing determination, of fire within me, that this incident would not define me, that I would not be a victim, that I would transform this shock into a lesson, into empowerment. And that determination marked the first chapter of my journey. It was the problem, the moment of despair, the wake-up call that forced me to face reality and to act. And it naturally led to the next part, the discovery, the moment when I began to learn the steps that would change everything, when fear met action, when problem became opportunity. And that is where the story continues. Once I accepted that I had to act, the first step was to understand exactly what had happened to my money, to uncover the vulnerabilities that had allowed someone to take advantage of me. I started by reviewing every transaction, every notification, every account detail I could find. I wrote down everything I noticed, no matter how small, because I knew that details could reveal patterns and patterns could reveal the truth. I contacted the bank and explained the situation in as much detail as possible. I asked for transaction histories, for alerts, for any unusual activity, and slowly the picture began to emerge. I realized that while my brother-in-law had exploited a moment of opportunity, there were steps I could take to prevent it from happening again. And those steps were surprisingly simple but powerful. I learned about strong passwords, the importance of using a combination of letters, numbers, and symbols, the need to never reuse passwords across accounts, the importance of updating them regularly, and the power of two-factor authentication. I implemented alerts for every account so that any activity would be immediately reported to me. I set up notifications not only for withdrawals, but for logins, changes to account information, and large transactions. I also began to track my spending and deposits meticulously so that any deviation from the expected would be immediately obvious. As I put these measures in place, I felt a sense of empowerment, a realization that even after betrayal there was a path forward that could restore security and confidence. I also discovered that knowledge was the greatest shield I could have. By understanding the tactics used in financial fraud, by learning what signs to watch for, I could anticipate problems before they became crises. I sought advice from experts and read about common schemes targeting retirees. I learned that fraudsters often exploit trust and familiarity, that they count on assumptions that people make about family and friends, and that even a small lapse in vigilance can be costly. I started to apply this knowledge, immediately checking my accounts multiple times a day, noting any irregularities, calling the bank whenever I felt something was off. And I began to feel a shift inside me, from fear to control, from uncertainty to confidence. The more I acted, the more I realized that action itself was a form of empowerment, that by taking responsibility, by being proactive, I was reclaiming control over a situation that had initially felt helpless. I also began to reflect on the emotional side of discovery, on how betrayal affected not just finances but trust, self-esteem, and sense of security. I realized that being alert and prepared could protect me not only financially, but emotionally, giving me the confidence to engage with family and friends without fear. But with awareness and boundaries, I discovered that small habits made a huge difference. Daily routines of checking accounts, securing devices, reviewing finances, and asking questions consistently created a barrier that no one could easily penetrate. It was a discipline that became a habit that strengthened over time, and as I implemented these practices, I noticed a change in my daily life, a sense of calm, a reduction in anxiety, a confidence that came from knowing I was doing everything I could to protect myself, and that even if someone tried to deceive me again, I would be ready. I also realized the importance of communication, explaining to trusted family members that I had safeguards in place, that I was monitoring my accounts, that any unexpected requests would be verified before any action was taken. It was about setting clear boundaries, about protecting my resources while still maintaining relationships. It was a delicate balance, but it was possible. And as I continued this process of discovery, I saw the transformation not just in my financial security, but in my mindset. I felt empowered, resilient, capable of responding rather than reacting, capable of making informed choices rather than being blindsided by emotion. And the most important discovery of all was that age did not limit me. It was not too late to learn to protect myself, to regain control, to turn a moment of betrayal into a story of empowerment. I realized that anyone at any age could take these steps, that the tools were accessible, the knowledge was out there, and the results were real, tangible improvements in security, peace of mind, and confidence. And as I reflect on this discovery phase, I see that it was more than just a series of actions. It was a mental shift, a transformation from vulnerability to vigilance, from fear to informed confidence, from victimhood to empowered action. And that discovery naturally led to the next chapter, the transformation, the point where the measures I had implemented began to create results, where fear and uncertainty gave way to security and calm, and where the lessons I learned became a roadmap not just for me, but for anyone who wants to protect themselves. And that is exactly where the next chapter begins. As I continued implementing the new security measures, the changes in my life became undeniable. Each day I logged into my accounts with a sense of calm instead of dread. Each notification that came through was no longer a source of panic, but a reassurance that I was in control. The anxiety that had gripped me after the family reunion slowly diminished, replaced by confidence and a newfound resilience. I started to notice that the discipline I had built around monitoring my finances extended beyond money. It influenced how I approached challenges, how I thought about trust, how I navigated relationships. With awareness and intentionality, I was no longer passive in the face of uncertainty. I was active, vigilant, prepared, and the transformation was not just external, it was internal. I felt stronger mentally, emotionally, and practically, capable of responding to unexpected situations with clarity and calm rather than reacting with fear or anger. I also began to share what I had learned with others. Friends, neighbors, family members, anyone who would listen, explaining the importance of vigilance, of strong passwords, of alerts, of careful monitoring. And every time I did, I noticed that sharing knowledge reinforced my own understanding and confidence. I was transforming a painful experience into something constructive, something that could protect not just myself, but others. I started creating simple routines that anyone could follow, especially retirees, people who might not be tech savvy or familiar with online banking. I broke down the process into steps: check accounts daily, secure passwords, update regularly, set alerts, communicate with trusted people, and monitor transactions consistently. Small steps that collectively built a strong protective system. And as I adhered to these routines, I began to feel a sense of empowerment that went beyond finances. It was about taking responsibility, about reclaiming control over my life, about proving to myself that age was not a limitation, that wisdom, experience, and the willingness to learn could turn even the most shocking betrayal into a catalyst for strength and security. I also started noticing subtle changes in my relationships. The awareness I had gained allowed me to interact with family and friends with clear boundaries, with caution, but without fear. I learned to observe behavior, to trust carefully, to verify actions, and to protect my interests without becoming paranoid or disconnected. I felt a balance, forming a harmony between vigilance and trust, and that harmony became a cornerstone of my daily life. And as weeks passed, months passed, the transformation deepened. I no longer dwelled on the loss or the betrayal. Instead, I focused on what I could control, on what I could improve, on what I could protect, and that focus brought peace and confidence. The act of taking control itself was therapeutic, empowering, liberating. It reminded me that even after a shocking betrayal, we have the ability to reclaim our lives and our peace of mind. I Also realize that transformation is a process, not a single event. It happens gradually, through consistent action, through the reinforcement of good habits, through learning from mistakes, and through maintaining awareness and vigilance over time. I could see the results in my life. My finances were secure, my stress levels decreased, my confidence increased, my sense of personal empowerment skyrocketed, and I began to believe that if I could do this, anyone could, no matter their age, no matter their experience, no matter how daunting the situation might seem. I took pride in the fact that I had turned fear into action, doubt into knowledge, vulnerability into strength, and that transformation became a story, not just of financial recovery, but of personal growth, of mental resilience, and of empowerment that could inspire others to take charge of their lives. And that is exactly what I want you to take away from this chapter: the idea that no matter how severe a setback seems, that no matter how close betrayal hits you, there is always a way forward, always steps you can take, always habits you can develop that create security, confidence, and peace of mind. And as I share this with you, I want you to visualize yourself implementing these measures, feeling that same sense of calm, that same empowerment, that same control, because the transformation I experienced is available to anyone willing to take action, willing to learn, willing to implement simple but effective practices. And as this transformation solidified in my life, it naturally led me to the next chapter, the part where I distill everything I learned into practical lessons, into actionable steps, into the key teachings that anyone over 65 can apply immediately to protect themselves and to live with confidence. And that is exactly where the story continues in the next chapter. The most important lesson I learned from this experience is that simple, consistent actions can protect you from situations that seem overwhelming, and that even a shocking betrayal can be turned into an opportunity for empowerment. The first step is always awareness. You must know what is in your accounts, who has access to your information, and what measures are in place to protect it. Without awareness, it is impossible to act. And once you have awareness, the next step is vigilance. Vigilance means checking accounts, regularly monitoring transactions, reviewing alerts, and being proactive rather than reactive. It means noticing changes that may seem minor at first and investigating them immediately. Vigilance creates a protective barrier around your resources and strengthens your confidence. The next crucial step is establishing strong security measures. Start with passwords. Make them complex, long, unique, combine letters, numbers, symbols, and never reuse passwords across accounts. This simple action drastically reduces the chance of unauthorized access. Add two-factor authentication to every account that offers it. This means that even if someone gains access to your password, they still cannot access your accounts without a second form of verification. Alerts and notifications are also essential. Set up email or phone alerts for withdrawals, logins, changes in account information, and any large transactions. This way you will be immediately aware of suspicious activity and can take action quickly. Another key lesson is to communicate clearly with trusted people. Establish boundaries. Explain that any requests for money or access will be verified before action is taken. This protects not only your finances, but also your relationships by setting clear expectations. Consistency is critical. Create a routine. Check accounts daily or several times a week. Review alerts and transactions. Keep a written record of any irregularities. This habit trains your mind to notice patterns and detect anomalies quickly. And equally important is knowledge. Continue learning about common scams targeting retirees, research methods of fraud, read expert advice, and understand tactics used by people who exploit trust. When you recognize these tactics, you're far less likely to fall victim to them. Empowerment comes from applying knowledge, taking action, and maintaining discipline. No matter your age, you can develop these habits and protect yourself and your peace of mind. One of the most overlooked aspects is emotional preparedness. Betrayal hurts not only your finances, but your trust, your confidence, and your sense of security. Learn to manage emotions, respond calmly, and make decisions based on facts rather than fear or anger. This mental resilience is as critical as technical measures because it ensures you maintain clarity and can act effectively in challenging situations. Another lesson is that small steps lead to big results. Implementing one habit at a time. Checking accounts today, securing passwords today, setting alerts today. Each small action builds a stronger system that over time becomes an almost impenetrable shield. The final key teaching is that age is not a limitation. Your life experience, your wisdom, your ability to learn and adapt are powerful tools in your favor. You can take control now. You can protect yourself now, and you can reclaim your confidence. Now the transformation is possible for anyone willing to implement these steps, willing to act consistently, willing to learn, and willing to maintain vigilance. As you integrate these teachings into your life, you will notice not only financial security, but emotional confidence, a reduction in anxiety, an ability to interact with others with awareness and boundaries, and a sense of empowerment that no one can take away. The knowledge that you are capable, competent, resilient, and that you have turned a moment of shock and betrayal into a story of growth, strength, and preparedness. And this chapter naturally leads to the next one. where I share additional practical tips and motivational guidance to ensure you maintain control over your finances and your peace of mind, providing strategies that anyone 65 or older can start applying immediately to prevent problems and protect what is rightfully theirs. And that is exactly where we move next. Now that you understand the lessons, now that you have seen how simple, consistent actions can transform fear and betrayal into confidence and control, it is time to take action. Do not wait. Do not assume someone else will protect your resources. The first thing I want you to do is check your accounts today. Review every transaction, every alert, every detail, no matter how small. Take a few minutes right now to make sure everything is as it should be. Then implement one security measure if you have not already set up strong, unique passwords. Do it today. If you have not enabled two-factor authentication, enable it today. If you do not have alerts set up for transactions, set them up today. Each small step builds momentum. Each action strengthens your control and confidence. After taking these steps, I want you to commit to a routine, checking your accounts, consistently monitoring alerts, reviewing transactions, making notes of anything unusual. These habits will protect you from future surprises and give you peace of mind. Now, I also invite you to join our community here on the channel by hitting the subscribe button and turning on notifications. This ensures that you will not miss any future tips, stories, or guidance designed specifically for retirees, people over 65 who want to learn how to protect themselves, improve their confidence, and reclaim control over their lives. Do not hesitate. Comment below, share your experiences, ask questions, engage with others. Your participation strengthens the community. Your questions may help someone else learn something valuable, and together we can create a network of support and shared knowledge. One more thing before you go, there is another video on this channel that goes deeper into practical steps and real stories of retirees who successfully protected themselves and transformed their lives. The video is appearing on the screen right now. Click on it after this one and continue learning. Continue empowering yourself, because every minute you delay taking action is a minute your resources, your peace of mind, and your confidence could be at risk. Remember that empowerment comes from knowledge and action. Do not let fear or procrastination stop you. Take control today. Take the first step right now. Subscribe, like, comment, share, and watch the next video. Continue building the habits that keep you secure, confident, and prepared. And know that by taking these steps, you are investing in your future, in your independence, and in your ability to live with clarity and peace of mind. And as you carry these lessons forward, you are not just protecting yourself, you are transforming your mindset, your habits, and your life. And that is the ultimate reward. The final message I want you to remember is that age is your strength, your experience, your wisdom, your ability to learn and adapt. These are your tools, and by using them consistently, you can protect your resources, safeguard your peace, and live with confidence and empowerment. And now it is your turn to act. Do not wait. Do not hesitate. Start today. Take one step, implement one habit, and continue building the security and confidence that you deserve. And as you do that, continue exploring this channel, watching stories, learning lessons, and applying knowledge. And together we will ensure that every retiree can live empowered, protected, and confident. As we come to the end of this story, I want you to take a moment to reflect on everything you have learned. The journey from shock and betrayal to awareness, vigilance, discovery, transformation, and empowerment. It is a journey that proves that no matter your age, you can take control of your life and your finances. You have the ability to act, to protect yourself, to implement simple, consistent habits, and to reclaim confidence and peace of mind. Remember that each small step you take today builds a stronger foundation for tomorrow. Checking accounts, securing passwords, setting alerts, monitoring transactions, seeking knowledge, and practicing emotional resilience. These actions combine to create a life of empowerment and security. I hope that as you watch this story, you felt the emotions, the shock, the fear, the determination, the transformation, and the lessons embedded within each chapter. And I hope that you feel inspired to apply them immediately in your own life, because knowledge without action is only potential, and action without knowledge can be risky. The power comes when you combine them, when you learn and then implement, when you see a challenge and respond proactively rather than reactively, when you transform fear into control, uncertainty into confidence, and vulnerability into strength. I also want to remind you that you are not alone. Here on this channel, we are building a community of retirees, people over 65 who want to protect themselves, empower themselves, and live with clarity and confidence. Together, we can share stories, learn lessons, support each other, and continue growing every day. So take advantage of the resources here on this channel. Continue watching videos, learning strategies, applying tips, and building habits that will serve you for a lifetime. And as you do that, remember to subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, like this video, share your experiences in the comments, and watch the next video appearing on the screen right now to continue your journey of empowerment. Every action you take now matters. Every habit you develop now builds your confidence, your security, and your peace of mind. And as we close this chapter of the story, I want to leave you with this final thought. Age is your strength, your experience is your guide, your wisdom is your tool, and your willingness to learn and act is the key to living a life of confidence, security, and empowerment. So thank you for spending this time with me for listening to the story, for engaging with the lessons, and for taking steps toward protecting yourself and reclaiming control over your life. Remember, start today, take one action, implement one habit, watch the next video, and continue growing, because your journey of empowerment is just beginning, and the best is yet to come.